All right, today we already did the tangent on Tuesday or a couple days ago. We worked on the tangent, and that was using the legs. Okay, so when using the tangent ratio, we only use the legs of the triangle. I'm going to draw, of course, what those are. The legs are the ones that make the right angle. So the tangent was the opposite leg compared to the adjacent leg. We did not use the hypotenuse. Now we're going to learn the other two trigonometric functions, or just two more of them. There's actually 6. The sine and the cosine are the ones we're going to learn today, and we're going to add them into knowing also. We need to know the tangent as well still today. The sine and the cosine, which will use the hypotenuse and a leg. Okay, so it's going to be hypotenuse and the leg involved in the sine and cosine. Okay. Good. All right, so here's what the sine and the cosine looks like. So you've got this triangle in your ISN right here, and we're going to be starting by coming from angle A. So that's like where we're looking from. So if we're looking from angle A, the side opposite would be the 6, and the hypotenuse is where the 10 is. Opposite over hypotenuse, 6 over 10, will reduce to 3/5. That's a pretty long time. Okay, the next one, the cosine of A, well, we're coming from, I'm not labeling the sides, guys. Do you know why? Because I don't know which angle I'm going to be coming from. I don't want to write on it right now, because if I do, and then I do these problems, it's going to change things, okay, because it matters what angle you're coming from. So for the cosine of angle A, this would be next to the eyeball. That's the side next to it, which would be its adjacent leg. So that's going to be 8, and the hypotenuse would be 10. The hypotenuse isn't changing, it's still 10. Then you reduce that to 4/5. Okay, now it says then find the sine and cosine of angle B. So now my eye is not here anymore. I'm going to put my eyeball up here. And if I'm looking from angle B, then what's across from it would be the 8. So the sine would be the opposite leg compared to the hypotenuse, which is still 10. And that reduces to 4/5. For the cosine of B, the adjacent leg is now 6, and the hypotenuse is 10. So that would be 3/5. Now, I use a mnemonic to know the trig ratios. If you look at your calculator for a second, just in the middle of it is where those buttons are. It says SIN. I know you guys say sin, but it's sine. And cosine and tangent. And it goes first is a sine, second cosine, third is the tangent button. Those keys are the ones we're going to be working with today. And we're going to be finding the missing side or angle. And I'm going to talk to you about this mnemonic. Oscar has a heap of apples. Some of you may have heard of SOHCAHTOA, so I've got them both on here. Oscar has a heap of apples. It goes just like this on your calc. Sine, cosine, tangent. So if you remember this mnemonic, you can just quick write down. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Oscar has. Cosine is a heap, adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right, so back to those problems right here. We're going to find these, the missing sides of using sine or cosine. We're going to show the setup. So what you need to be able to do is go to the acute angle, never the right angle. Look from there, if you will, and call the sides what they are. The right angle is here, and the opposite, the right angle, is always the hypotenuse. Okay, so I'm just going to label the hypotenuse. From the eye in this angle, where it's looking that way, away from that angle, this side would be called the opposite leg. So I've got opposite and hypotenuse, and that tells me to use Oscar has, which is the sine. This is a heap, cosine. So this would be the sine, and then you put the angle in, sine of 57. It's always sine of an angle or cosine of an angle or tangent of an angle, is equal to opposite leg x over the hypotenuse 14. We then treat this thing like a proportion, and we do our cross products property, and we get x equals 14 times the sine of 57. You grab your calc and you type that in. 14 sine 57. Make sure you type that in so that you know if your calculator's in the right mode or not. I got 11.7. Is anybody not getting 11.7? You need to know if you're in the right mode. Okay. Hey, I'm going to be asking you guys for some answers shortly. I hope you get working. All right, 11.7 units for that length. You see how this one looks different even, the way it's marked up? Over here, the side, everything was away from the 57 kind of. The x's away from it. Here, they're really close together. So when you go look with your eye at the 52 degrees and you're looking, then the hypotenuse is where the x is, and the side next to the angle that's attached to it is the adjacent leg. The opposite side is blank. So since I have adjacent leg and hypotenuse, I'm going to use the cosine for this one. The last one I use the sine. So this is going to be cosine of the angle 52 is equal to adjacent leg 20 over hypotenuse, which is x. I treat this like a proportion, and I do my cross products. This time, though, I'm going to get x times the cosine of 52 equals 1 times 20, which is 20. Next, I will divide both sides by cosine 52. And that's what I need to type on the calculator. I need to type 20 divided by the cosine of 52. $32.5. And that would be in just units, as that's a side length. I write my U's weird. That is a U. I write them cursive for some reason. There, I'll fix it. All right, so then on the ISN, again, this is a list of what we need to know. To remember all three trig ratios, you can use SOHCAHTOA, or I like to use Oscar has a heap of apples. Okay, there they are. And then we're going to do some more examples right now. Okay, we've got, on this one, we need to identify. So you start looking right from the angle. That's the first thing to do, is go by that angle that you're given, not the 90, and say, where am I looking? If I look across here, that would be opposite. And the x is on the hypotenuse. You say to yourself, opposite and hypotenuse, and that tells you to use the sine. So this one would be the sine of 70 equals 17 over x. We do our cross products. X times the sine of 70 equals 17. We need to divide by the sine of 70. Excuse me. Thank you. And we're going to get, in our calc, 17 divided by sine 70. 18.1. Is that what you guys got? Units. Now, number 2 is different. If you're coming from the 58 degrees, looking out, I don't see anything across from the angle. So then I look next to it, and that would be your adjacent leg. The side across from the 90 is always the hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse tells me on this one to use the cosine. So that's going to be the cosine of 58 equals adjacent 14 over hypotenuse x. We're going to have to divide on this one too. So we're going to have to do, look, here's a way to do this really quick. go across and divide. So across 1 times 14, divide by cosine 58. You can just type it just like that. 1 times 14, not that you really need to multiply 1 times 14, but if you just keep going across and divide, then you'll be good. Cosine of what was my angle? I forgot now. 58. Okay, 26.4 would be the length. Okay, on number 3, this is in a sandwich. It looks like it's everything smushed together. You see what I mean? X on top of 24, below it 10. They're kind of smushed together. So when you're looking at that, it's always a cosine. Okay, because you're going to have the hypotenuse, which is your 10, and then here's your adjacent leg. So that's cosine 24 equals adjacent leg x over hypotenuse 10. And so here's the cross product thing. You just do 10 times 24 divided by 1. You don't really have to type divided by 1, but x will equal 10 times the cosine of 24. We got 9.1 units. Number 4, that looks different than the last one. Okay, it's not going to be cosine. So I'm going to look at where I'm standing, and that's always at the acute angle. Across from it would be my opposite leg, and then next to it is the adjacent leg. The hypotenuse is blank. So we're going to use opposite and adjacent, so that's the tangent. Tangent of 37 equals x over 18. Okay, cross products, so you're going to do 18 tan 37. Okay, got 13.6 units. Okay, we're not going to go on to the next page today, so let's go to the packet. I'll re-explain. The top of your page, you have these 3 things. Oh. Yours looks more like this, and then you've got blah, blah, blah. All right. Anyway, you've got them all there. Another way to think about it, like let's say you were starting to do a quiz, and you wanted to do, well, what are those ratios again? And you didn't feel like looking up in your ISN, or your teacher didn't let you use an ISN. You would quickly say to yourself, well, it goes sine, cosine, and tangent on the calculator. And then you could say in your head, Oscar has a heap of apples. And that just gives you all of the ratios ready to go. Now, I'm going to come from angle W. So first, if you're going to do the sine of W and cosine of W and tangent of W, I don't want to mark up my triangle. And that's because I'm going to also do from angle T. So I'm going to start here with W and say opposite. Well, first of all, we can label the hypotenuse all the time. But I can't label opposite and adjacent unless I know what angle I'm coming from. So I'm coming from W, then the opposite side would be 4, and the hypotenuse is 5. So this would be 4/5. Bless you. The cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it would be 3/5. And when it says to write a ratio, guys, that means a fraction. And you're supposed to leave it a fraction in reduced form. The tangent of W is opposite over adjacent, 4/3. Now it says using the same figure, write the 3 trig ratios for angle T. So this time I'm coming from over here. A minute ago, the ones I did in red, I was coming from up here. Now I'm going to come from angle T. So I'm looking at it differently. So if I go from angle T, opposite will be the 3, and adjacent would be the 4, and the hypotenuse is still 5. Opposite is 3 over hypotenuse. 3/5 would be my sine of T. My cosine of t is adjacent over hypotenuse would be 4/5, and my tangent would be opposite over adjacent 3/4. So it matters which angle you're coming from. Shouldn't be seeing any phones. Okay, all three ratios are needed because the clues given in each problem vary. Sometimes you have clues about the legs only, so that's when you use the tangent. In other problems, you might have concerned with the hypotenuse, in which case you're going to use your sine or your cosine. Write a trig equation for each of the following and solve. Now, this is already telling us what to use. So I'm going to use the tangent here because, and the reason is, I'm coming from the 27. Across from the 27 is my opposite leg, and next to it is the adjacent leg. That's why we're using tangent. So the tangent of 27, this is your setup. Okay, my trig equation is tan 27 equals x over 20. And then I go ahead and calculate. I do my cross products property, and I get x equals 20 times the tangent of 27. And you could go ahead and type that. At 10.2 to the nearest 10. Okay, I'm going to start asking you guys calculations and setups after I do these three. The cosine, the reason we're using the cosine on this one is because we are coming from the 60-degree angle over here, and the x is on the hypotenuse, and this side next to the angle is the adjacent leg. And that's also that sandwich situation where you see one between the other. That's your cosine. So the setup for this one would be the cosine of 60 equals adjacent 8 over hypotenuse x. Got a little different calculation on this one in that you are, I'm going to write that down here. You're going to have x times the cosine of 60 equals 8, and you're going to need to divide by cosine 60. So 8 divided by cosine 60 and I got 16. It's actually a 30, 60, 90. We could have figured out another way, but it definitely doesn't look to scale. All right, on number 5, you are looking from the 13 degrees. The 50 is on the hypotenuse, and this would be the opposite leg to that angle. That's why it's the sine. So you say sine of 13 equals x over 50. And all you do is calculate 50 sine 13. Okay, 50 sine 13 is 11.2. And those are all in units. The next three tell us what to do. Does somebody want to tell me how to set up number 6? Dakasha? Sure. Oh, by the way, that 40, I got to put back. Your figure has it right there, right? Okay, go ahead. The I, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Good. Okay. Okay. Under the tan. Yep. And then your calculation. Go ahead. You got. And what will you type? Good. All right. Anybody else get 11.7? Yes. Good. Okay. I believe she typed it right. Good job. All right, someone want to set up number 7? All right, Darylyn? Okay. And that's because I thought that was, and not asking you to say it like Dakasha, but I was really surprised at her. She did a good job because she told me where to put, where I'm looking from and everything. And I think that's very helpful to understanding this. So I'm not saying that you have to say that and draw the eyeball every time, but if that's what's helping you, do it. Okay. Yes. You knew that this was the side. I mean, that's what. Uh-huh. There you go. So you did the right thing. And then, but what? How did you calculate this one? That's the trickier part. Okay. Did you write all of this down, or did you just kind of do it in your calculator? Oh, you did. Okay, that's good in the beginning, and then you start to know after a while that you probably don't have to write one of the steps. At least, like you might just go 1 times 10 divided by sine 28. Okay, and what did you end up with? 21.3. Okay, units. All right, someone else for number 8, please. If you don't volunteer, I will end up trying. Very well will be likely to call on you. Okay, I just want to see if we're getting it. Okay. No one wants to volunteer? All right then. Caitlin. Cosine of 30. Okay. Okay, that's correct. Okay, so she knew this was adjacent and this was hypotenuse. And then your what did you get for your calculation? 173.2 units. Okay. I can tell you're obviously ahead of me on this, right? Or are you doing something? Okay. All right. Well, I want to get some more setups. Now, you guys have to pick. There's no more telling you what they are. You have to be able to look at it and tell what it is you should use. Sine, cosine, or tangent. So, and I just want to find out if you're understanding. And if I ask you and you do not know, do not worry about it. I'm going to coach you through it. Okay? All right. So, number 1. Chloe, can you tell me what you would do for this one? Yes. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. That's the right setup. Sine 60 equals x over 54. All right, cross multiply and then tell me what you got for x. All right, and that's going to be in meters for this one. I'm just jumping right in, guys, because a lot of you get this pretty quick, and then we're off to the races, and I just want to check to find out who needs my assistance still. All right, how about number 2, setting that one up? Alyssa? Okay, that is the right one. Okay, it would be tangent because there's nothing on the hypotenuse. So the leg opposite is x and the leg adjacent is the 28. And what did your calculation come to? 23 point what? Okay. Is that at the bottom of the paper, guys? These answers should be at the bottom of the paper. Then you want to check down there to make sure that also help you know if you're doing this right. Okay, but how about number 3? I know I didn't call on whoever raised their hand last time, but I want to. If you want to volunteer, feel free, as long as you haven't done it already. You already did one. Sorry, I just don't want to keep on answering having the same person. Bryce, you wanted to do the last one. How about 3? cosine. That's okay. That's it. All right, because this one's a hypotenuse and this one would be the adjacent leg, right next to the angle. Okay, can you calculate that out for me, please? $18 cosine 75. Would you get 40? It can't be 40. It's got to be less than 18. You got what? You're talking so soft. Thank you. 4.7? That sounds good to me. All right, number 4. Any volunteers? All right, Evan. Mm-hmm. All right. And how much is that? 8.4? Thank you, and then we'll label it with meters. Okay. 5. Dariana? Work with me on that one. Okay, talk to me about what is the 96? That's in science, but yeah, the hypotenuse.
Sorry.
That's okay. You know the hypotenuse. Pardon? Yes, it is cosine because that one's the sandwich. It's like this one's the adjacent leg. Okay, so set it up for me. Cosine. Uh-huh. Okay, you put the hypotenuse on top. Okay, is cosine of an angle equal, what does it equal in the, okay, Oscar has, that's the sign, A heat. It should be A over H. So that's the adjacent leg. That one's the hypotenuse. So yes, it has to be X over 96 instead of 96 over X. Do you see what I'm talking about now? Yeah, so short, it's got to be leg over hypotenuse. The hypotenuse will never be on top. Okay, so now you're going to calculate 96 times the cosine of 50. Okay, that sounds reasonable because it should be smaller than the hypotenuse. 6. Oh, let's see what we can get. Priscilla. Okay, now help me out here. Where's your eyeball going to go? Over here? All right. Now, in relationship to that, what is the X? Mm-hmm. And what's the 29? Yep. So now you just told me to do opposite over hypotenuse. You just told me it's opposite and hypotenuse. Which one? It is the sine. Okay. So now tell me what to write. Good. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Uh-huh. Yes, it's got to be in that way because the hypotenuse is never on top. It's going to always go on the bottom, all right? So you want to do the opposite over the hypotenuse, all right, now can you calculate that? Thank you. Meters. Okay, so you found that answer at the bottom. Okay, number 7. Abby, can you tell me what the x is and what the 112 is? Yep, that's your adjacent side, okay? And this is what? Yep, hypotenuse. All right, so which one are you going to use? Okay, cosine of 35 equals? Yep. Okay, good. And then did you calculate it? What did you get? Okay, 91.7. Sounds reasonable to me. And that's down at the bottom of the page? Okay. Okay, number 8. Lexi? Okay, didn't mean to get a yellow marker, can't see it. Sine 55 equals x over 63. Yes, that would be the correct setup. And then you calculated, did you get the answer? Good, thank you. Sounds reasonable. Are we guys agreeing with the numbers? And you found that at the bottom, right, of the page? Okay. Okay, how about Lauren, number 9? Okay, tangent of 30 equals x over 48. That would be the correct ratio. Okay. 48 tan 30 was what was it? 20? Okay, thank you. And that's in meters. Okay, there's 3 more, I believe, on this page. Number 10. Nathan. Number 10. Now, what you see these? What's this right here? No, I meant that's the hypotenuse. So you don't have anything on it. If you don't have anything on your hypotenuse, you can't use sine or cosine. It's got to be tangent. All right, so tell me the equation, please. Equals x over 75. Okay, now it's not always x on top, but the reason this one is x over 75 is because this tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, and x would be the opposite side, so that's correctly set up. And then what did you get when you type tan 75 times 32? 1.7? Oh no, where'd you get tan 75? That's not it. 75 is not an angle. Did you just transpose the numbers maybe? 75 times the tangent of 32. That sounds better. Is that what we got? 40? What is it? 46.9? Okay. All right. Number 11. Angel. Yep, that's what I thought. Is she like, she didn't hear me? She got earbuds in? She have earbuds in? No. She asleep? Angel. Yeah, you need to wake up, not be sleeping while I'm teaching my lessons. Thank you very much. Did you try it, Corey? Not sure? You came from here. Well, do you know what that piece is of the triangle? That's across from the 90? The big one's always called the hypotenuse, okay? Now, if you're looking from up here, then across from the 15, that would be called opposite or adjacent. Okay, the adjacent means right next to it, so that would be here. So this one's called the opposite leg, okay? Now, if I'm doing opposite and hypotenuse, do you know which one I'm going to use? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Okay. No, wait a minute. The sine of an angle was Oscar Hess. That's opposite over hypotenuse. That's the one. Because that's the one that has the ratio of opposite to hypotenuse. So now it's going to be the sine of 15 equals the opposite side is x to the hypotenuse is 86. Okay. Cross product, so we got x equals 86 times the sine, oopsie, times the sine of 15, and that's what I typed. Okay, so we should get 22.3. April, can we do 12, please? You got it. Okay, cosine, yep, because we're coming from here, that x is actually adjacent to that one. When they're skinny, those can be sometimes kind of hard to look at, but always across from the 90, that's your hypotenuse. So she was correct in adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, and your calculation gave you what? Thank you. 64.1 meters. Okay, guys, you got the back side now, right? All right. Are there answers on the bottom of that page? No. All right. Go for it. I'm going to walk around and start seeing if I need to help anybody with the setups. How many of you already finished that back page? That's what I thought. We got a few of you. Okay. Maybe you can help somebody next. Now, the first one on the back here, I want to make sure that you calculated it correctly. This is your hypotenuse, and this is the leg opposite the 39 degrees. This should have been the sine. Sine of 39 equals 28 over x. As soon as we got to the back, now we're stuck doing a different calculation. None of the other ones had the x on the denominator. Okay, so when you do this kind, you have to remember x times the sine of 39 equals 38. You've got to divide. So it should be 38 divided by the sine of 39. Of 28. I don't know how I wrote a 38. There we go. Thank you. So 28 divided by sine 39. Okay. 44.5. You are right. All right, so careful, and that's in meters. Some of these have X on the bottom. So does number 3. All right, so get busy setting them up. I need to see on everybody's paper, I want this part, and then at least that and the calculation. All right? If you want to show the step in between, great. anybody want to ask me a question before we wrap things up today? Yes, over there. Uh-huh. So you mean like after you get the setting up, but not what I was calculating? Yeah, because you see if you do cross products, you would get x times the sine of 39 equals 28. You see what I'm saying? And then you would have to get x alone. You'd have to divide by the sine of 39. So what you type on the calculator is 28 divided by the sine of 39, just like that. So it's got to be division instead of multiplication on the ones where x is on the bottom. Okay? So like right here, if you're going to do this one, it's going to be cosine of 20 equals 52 over x. And so that's going to require, you can go like this, 1 times 52 divided by cosine of 20. You can go cross multiply, divide, or you can just write it out like I did here. Because it'd be x times the cosine of 20 equals 1 times 52. You're going to need to divide by cosine of 20. Okay? You're welcome. Oh, I'm glad you asked. That's exactly what I need. Ask me what ones you don't get. Absolutely. Yeah.